Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fintech Combine. I am your host, Kris Kovacs, and this is the series where we talk with and sometimes about community-based institutions, their business and digital transformation projects, and the innovators, entrepreneurs, and fintechs that make it all possible. On this episode, we're speaking with Adam Oliver, the CEO and founder of Crafted, about the power of design in bringing new applications to credit union members. So if you're ready, let's suit up and get out on the field. Adam, it's so great to have you on the Fintech Combine today. Thank you very much for joining us. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to found Crafted?
Yeah, Kris, thanks for having me on the podcast. Really excited to be here. My background, it's all been in Colorado, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. And after engineering school, mechanical engineering, I took a couple of turns in my career, went into real estate development. In the 2008 crash is when I decided to get back into more of an engineering and tech led profession. So I was lucky to get on with some enterprises, doing a little bit of what today would certainly be old school technology. And then in about 2011, I got a good break into modern tech, where we had to spin out of our existing organization and do a startup. And with that startup, we got in touch with a great consultancy called Pivotal Labs. And that was really like the turning point in my tech career when I realized how you could build and ship modern technology. And you didn't have to do it all the old school ways. And I look back at those old ways and it just kind of makes me cringe. So doing that startup and then joining Pivotal Labs for about 6 years in total was really a transitional point in my career. Learned a lot of great best practices with product management, engineering, and design, and how to really ship iterative and valuable software and do it very quickly. So then that led me up to Crafted. As Pivotal Labs grew to their IPO in 2018, they were starting to work with bigger enterprises and government contracts and defense department and things like that. And I just realized my passion at that point was 100% with startups and growth stage companies. So in 2018, I decided to jump out and start Crafted, which was really just that, just doing a reset on getting back with growth stage and startups to where we could iterate quickly, make fast decisions, work with small collaborative teams, and just always be focused on shipping value quickly. So we launched Crafted in 2018. Here we are 6 years later. We're still a boutique but growing consultancy out of Denver, Colorado, with about 20 people. And we're all based in the United States, but we love working again with those growth stage companies and getting them into a modern tech era here.
Adam, tell me a little bit about the profile of your typical customer or client.
Yeah, that's something we've really been honing in on over those years. Like, we worked with startups, growth stage, and enterprise clients, but our ideal situation, Kris, is the growth stage market. Right, so it's companies with maybe a range of 50 to 150 employees. They probably have somewhere in the range of 25 to maybe 100, maybe 200 million in revenue. Right, so they're at growth stage, and often they have found a product market fit. But what has taken them from their startup to that product market fit is not going to take them to the next level. They need to maybe reset on some of their processes, on some of their technology, and in order to go from maybe 100 or 200,000 users into the millions, or go from tens of millions in revenue to hundreds of millions, they now need to go to that next level with their technology and often redo it. We call that app modernization. So that's often a big piece of what our clients do. But definitely that ideal customer profile is growth stage tech companies that are looking to accelerate.
What are the services you typically offer those kinds of clients? I mean, we are a client of yours, right? So I know some of the things that you've done, but tell me about what are the typical types of services you can provide?
Yeah, so with Crafted, we call it the Balance Team. And Marty Kagan, a big product guy out of Silicon Valley, here in Silicon Valley Product Group, he calls it the product trio. So for Crafted, that's product management, product design, and engineering. We think that's kind of the core team that you need to ship really valuable software. Now, on the outside of that, you certainly have your marketers, your product marketers, sales, customer support, but Crafted brings those three disciplines to the table. And we think if we can pair up with our partners' domain expertise, we can help our partners drive their businesses forward. And like you mentioned, Kris, our partnership with you was heavily focused on the UI UX design side of things. How can we pair up with your team, iterate on the knowledge that your team brings to the table from a domain expertise in the fintech space and credit union space? And then how can we bring our expertise with UI UX design and help you guys move your business forward? So across those three disciplines, that's what we're looking to do. Bring expertise in how to ship software quickly and iteratively, but we always leverage our clients' domain expertise to make sure we're in alignment with what they want and need and getting things to their market as quickly as possible.
What do people get wrong with product management?
Yeah, good question. I think we did a lot of kind of introspection and kind of market kind of thoughts last year in 2023. And one of the biggest problems we found that was the most common problem in product management, and then it trickles down to the rest of the team, is focus and prioritization. Often it's, we all know we're kind of strapped for time and resources. It's very easy to put ideas and priorities on top of the stack or just on the stack somewhere. It's not real easy, and it's the science and true art of product management to understand those priorities, drive focus. You can't do it all at the same time. If you do that, chances are your quality is going to dip. So by far and away, it's focus. I would have to say there are some other problems kind of in there with process or things like that. But what we often tell teams and executives that are outside of product development is you have to let your teams have some focus, right? It can't all be a number one priority.
Yeah, I once had a CEO who we'd put a list of 100 things down at the beginning of the year, and we'd say, okay, we'd like the priority. And he goes, well, that's 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D.
Yep.
I think that can be a real problem, right? Because, I've never heard somebody say it's really easy to put an idea on the top of the pile. And that's so true. And I know that as a CEO sometimes, I'm like, what do you mean? It's just an idea. It's just one little thing. Can I just get one little thing? And in reality, that your team is so invested in laying out kind of the roadmap and the sprints in order to get done what they're doing that it can be disruptive if you add too much on there that's distracting. I really appreciate that insight. So how does Crafted work with organizations as they develop, either enhance their existing products or they create new ones? Can you walk me through a little bit of what that process feels like?
Yeah, so kind of two aspects. One thing that Crafted does as a bit of a differentiator is how tightly we integrate and collaborate with our clients. That's a big piece of it. We come in and we do feel like we have excellent processes to help you go from an idea or a problem all the way through solutions and shipping it. But step one is we need to be married up and tightly in sync with your domain expertise. So that's part of our process. We want and need to be in there with your team side by side, a lot of hours. In a 40-hour week, we would hope that collaboration is happening, 30 to 40 hours of that week with your teams. So that's step one, is tight collaboration. I think, Kris, you've probably seen in the past when you work with vendors or consultants or partners, the more of a separation there is, the more chance that things are going in different directions. And then when you get it back or at the end of the project, it's, hey, that's not what we wanted or asked for. So we try to reduce that with just tight feedback loops and constant collaboration. And then talking a little deeper into the actual process itself, we start with what's called discovery and framing, right? Where we take some of the problem space. We want to make sure we fully understand the problem. Then we prioritize which problems to solve. And then you drive that through iterative solutioning. And through that solution phase, you're also validating it with customers. You're validating it with the business and with stakeholders so that, multiple times a week, you're having checkpoints where are we driving something that the users want and need, and will it resonate with the business? Will it drive the business forward? Because you don't want too much of a gap between those two worlds. And then we get into the iterative delivery where we're shipping the software and launching it to live users. And what we want that process to look like is not waterfall. Very, very different than waterfall, where all you're doing is requirements documents. When you're going through this iterative kind of problem space and solutioning, you are iterating on the actual deliverable while you do this. You're learning about it, you're making it better, you're constantly updating your mockups or your code or your requirements. So it's not waterfall, it's very much iterative validation as you get from a problem all the way to a solution. And the reason we want to do that is that it's much cheaper and much faster these days to iterate with prototypes and mock-ups and UI UX design, right? Once you start getting things down to the development teams, it's more expensive, it's more concrete, it's harder to change. So that's what our process kind of facilitates. It's always iterative and constantly progressing, but by the time you get there, it's done at a de-risked and kind of validated way.
How does design play into the process of updating or creating a new product? Right. One of the things that I've seen before is people go for this kind of amorphous thing called, well, it's clean, it's modern, right? And in reality, it's like, I feel like that's a little bit like when people talk about wine, right? And they go, wine, well, you know what? It's a little dry. It's full bodied, but it's because they don't have other words to describe it, right? A sommelier would have all of these words to describe it. So I'm asking you, like, what does clean and modern really mean? And what role does design play in trying to achieve that and in order to ultimately bringing a product or updating a product on the market?
Yeah, no, great question. And I'll start with more how design approaches their problems, and I'll talk about the clean comment and even the sommelier comment. So, with design, their biggest goal, their biggest focus should be the user, right? What does the user want and need? What's going to make their life better? What's going to make it easy to use the software? And can they complete the jobs or tasks that they want to do with our software? Now, that being said, the best design teams also then combine that with what's going to drive the business forward, right? Because we know if we don't take care of the business, then it all goes away and we can't help our users anyway. So the best design teams know how to take the top value adds for the customer and marry that up with what's going to drive business revenue or profits or value. So there's an interesting magic that happens there on that intersection and combining those. Not all the design teams are great at that, right? They focus too much on the user and they don't understand which ones are going to have the biggest impact on the business. So we want them always pushing for the user, but then having a good mindset for how will it drive the business forward. That's also kind of a good collaboration space for a designer and a PM, right? At the same time, the other thing you want a good design team to do is be constantly collaborating with engineering to understand the trade-offs of how quickly we can ship it and what's the investment of shipping this software. So again, that goes back to kind of our balanced team model. You need those teams all talking together constantly, continuously. You don't want them in siloed areas of your organization where it's constant, like kind of call it like stage gate type of development where it's passing from one team to another team, right? You want them all on the same team, talking about the same problems, same solutions. So then the other piece of it that is always evolving is the difference between UX and user journeys and what's going to satisfy the user, and then UI, right? And that's where you get more into what you're talking about, Kris, with like modern look and feel and what's going to resonate there. And I think there is an aspect of UI where you can pull up various websites and you're like, okay, this thing was built 15 years ago. It's very obvious. And so that's one aspect of modern versus not modern. Then, there's other things where your UI UX can evolve as quickly as some of the engineering concepts are. There's a lot of new frameworks out there that allow you to do faster, snappier interactions on websites or on mobile. And if you're a savvy user, certainly if you're shipping software to the savvier tech generations, they're going to notice some of that, right? So they're going to know pretty quickly, is it modern? Is this thing from 10 or 15 years ago? Even today, like one good example is a lot of login flows, right? Where now a lot of people are going away from even using a password, where it's just immediately sending codes to either your email or your text messages, right? And that's an easier way. Because all I do is reset passwords every time I need to use a website because I don't remember the 6,000. So those are things that can tell you like, okay, this team has a modern way of building software from a UI
Gotcha.
UX standpoint. And then there's certainly, like I said, kind of what we call the lipstick on the pig. And you can go to a new website and you're like, that thing looks really good. It looks slick. And there's certainly value in that because you build trust on knowing if software looks like it's 1 or 2 years old, or does it look like it was built in 2003? And that'll decrease your trust with users pretty quickly. And that could have a big impact in your space, Kris, in the banking and fintech, right? If you look at maybe Stripe interfaces, people would usually associate those with modern. You look at, I don't know, an older school player in the fintech space, but you might see something that's from 2003 and be like, oh man, this team hasn't upgraded much in 20 years. That could be dangerous for me as a user. So, yeah.
Yeah, I tell people sometimes when I see some of those old websites, I'm like, that looks like an HTML project from the 90s, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I appreciate that. I never thought about how a modern design can build trust with the user, right? Because it tells them somebody's paying attention, right?
Yep.
Somebody's looking at it. Somebody's really considering it and paying attention. That's very insightful. How do you future proof solutions? Because we know, tastes, frameworks change over time. How do you future proof, or can you future proof a solution using good design or product management principles?
Yeah. I think you can. There's interesting ways to tackle that problem. When I kind of started my tech career, in the around maybe 2008, 2009, it was very much like plan for five to 10 year plan, right? And you got to build this. And to be honest, we way over architected, we way over planned, and then most of these things kind of never needed that anyway. Not only did they not need it, but now I look back and I'm like, well, you were going to upgrade that system anyway. So thinking about 10 years out, not that your business won't be there in 10 years, but the tech, very likely with how fast tech is moving these days, I would say like the shelf life probably needs to be looked at maybe in the 5 year range, right? And you're going to need to be upgrading the front end and the back end and things like that and constantly evolving it. One thing we talk about is like tech is never done, right? So as soon as you do a UI UX redesign, hopefully it lasts and adds value for 2, 3, 4 years, maybe 5, but probably at 5, you need to start rebuilding. So
Right.
there's that aspect that I think good teams should be set up to constantly iterate. But that being said, you don't want to redo stuff every 6 or 12 months, right? That's too fast. Then there's other aspects that I can think that can help future proof. So one thing we do on the engineering side, and it's relatively adopted in the tech community these days, but still getting there, is what we call test-driven development. What that's going to do is not necessarily future proof you, and you need to be thinking about the architectures so you do have the 5 year runway. But what test driven development does is allow you to quickly and iteratively enhance your platforms or modernize them in a much faster, much better way, because you've built this kind of scaffolding and structure so you know if you're breaking your software. And when we go in, one of the core niches that we play in, Kris, is app modernization, because for Crafted, we realize there's an insane number of tech companies that their software is between 5 and 20 years old at this point, maybe longer than that. But all of those companies, if they're a successful company, they now need to modernize, and they're probably behind on doing that. So when we go in to try to modernize software or enhance, get you on your newest version, the teams that have test-driven development, you have the scaffolding in place. You can do that much better, much faster. You can do it more iteratively because I liken it to like doing a kidney transplant. You can do that if you have all your kind of instrumentation hooked up to the patient. You know that everything's going okay. You can swap that out and you'll have them back out on the street in a couple of days. The teams that don't have test-driven development and don't have kind of this framework in place, it's a nightmare to try to modernize, right? It's risky, it's harder, it takes longer, stuff like that. So what I would also tell companies today is absolutely be doing things like test-driven development, where you're building in this scaffolding to let you modernize in 2, 3 years, and you can always iterate. You don't have really risky pieces of your platform that you're like, I can never touch that. And I think, Kris, you've maybe seen it in a couple of industries. Like the medical industry is so tied to this software called Epic, right? Can't get off of it. They have no way to get away from that thing. And then the airline industry is on, I think it's Sabre. So what you want to do as a new tech company, if you're maybe within the last 5 years old, to future-proof yourself, is it's not building software that'll last 20 years. It's giving yourself the ability to constantly upgrade, constantly kind of enhance that software. And those are some of the methods that we use, is like test-driven development, and allowing your teams to constantly refactor, build that into part of your culture of an engineering team, that like, we're going to keep our house pretty clean and we're going to always like upgrade it, versus waiting 50 years and then realizing you have to demolish the house to build a new one type of mindset.
Yeah. That has certainly been the case for many community-based institutions, right? So they're under this concept where every 5 years, I've heard of institutions signing 7-year contracts at this point. I get to kind of refactor my digital experience, rip it all down, potentially rebuild it. It's a costly experience. It slows down the organization. Do you have any experience working with financial institutions to help them become more agile and really using this test-driven development?
Yeah, I think one of them is less in the financial realm, but in the insurance tech space, which is very similar to the fintech space. It's complicated. There's a lot going on in that space, and we absolutely did. We worked with a partner out in New York City that was building an insurance tech platform that they could then surface to many clients through a lot of retailer websites and third party partnerships. And it was exactly that. When we started launching their first bits of software, they weren't necessarily using test driven development. But when they saw how quickly we could iterate by having test-driven development, and then when we handed the project over to more of their team members, we paired with some of their engineers while we were doing it, so they understood not only the code base but also the test suite that came with it. Then when they started to onboard and ramp their own development teams on this new product that we built with them, their team was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Right? We understand the requirements of the software because they're kind of written in the test, and we can ramp up, and we know we're going to write a new feature, but we're going to know if we break an existing feature, right?
Hmm.
And so the handoff, they're like, we've never had a handoff to our internal teams go so smoothly to where we could continue to extend the platform. We could continue to ship it, multiple times a week and get value to our customers. And so it's kind of an epiphany for them. They're like, yeah, of course, this is the future. We have to make this a core competency for our dev teams and go forward. And I think, I will put that back to like my past in tech, where when I started seeing test-driven development, and at that point in my career as a product manager, before that, every time we would release software, it was a painstaking exercise that would take most of a sprint cycle. I call it like 2 days out of a 2-week sprint cycle. And it was chaotic, it was wasteful. And even when we would ship it, a lot of things would break. So then you spend another day fixing stuff, right? When I got on with Pivotal Labs and they were keen on this test-driven development, which is what Crafted is built on, it just reduces stress like an insane amount. And you have a lot of confidence in every shipment, every deployment. You're like, yeah, I don't have to think about it. We've already tested it. It's stable. It's going to work. So then you get really comfortable with releasing software daily and weekly, and it's not a big organizational problem.
Where do you find the talented staff you need in order to execute on a plan like that, right? How do you focus on identifying the right people? Obviously, product management, super hot in the industry today, right? Developers, good Lord, are super tough to find. How do you identify, find, and retain good talent?
Yeah, great question. That is actually a thing that we help a lot of our clients with as well, is hiring and training. Because I think one of the best things I've learned in my career is exactly that. How do you spot these good techniques and these good practices and bring them into your team? So one thing that we do across all of our disciplines is we have collaborative interviews, right? So something that's kind of going by the wayside a little bit is the stand up at a whiteboard and go through an algorithm if you're an engineer, right? Engineers tend to hate that. It's kind of a Google or Facebook type of thing. And it had its use for a while, but now it's kind of done. So what we do is bring them in and it's like, let's just work on problems that we would work on every day as PMs, designers, or engineers. And you're going to sit with part of the Crafted team and let's just do the job. Let's do it together. And we have 2 different ways of doing that. One, we have some what we call kind of canned interviews that all 3 disciplines go through. So you can get a sense across PMs, engineers, designs, how do they think about the same problem? And how do you just do your job? It's not about the solution they come up with, but it's just how do they think? How do they collaborate? How do they talk through a problem and start to find possible solutions? And so that's great. That is one thing we teach our clients, and it's usually a big epiphany. It's by far one of the best things I've learned in my career over the last 10 years is how to do this interview process. And then the other thing we do, we will also solve some tangible real life problems, right? So if we're on a client, we'll always get approval from our clients, but it's like, hey, we're doing an interview today. Can we just bring this interview candidate into the fold and work on a problem? So I don't think we did it on your project, Kris, but if we had Aaron in there designing some of the home screens and user journeys, let's just talk through this. Here's our problem. Give us your ideas. What would you do next? What's your process? And I have found that by far is the best way to hire people, because you get a true sense of how they work and collaborate, but also how they think. And then when they get on the job, they're doing the same type of thing. So there's no disconnect between the interview and the actual work.
I love that contrast between an audition and an interview, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing is you're auditioning them with real life problems and things to solve.
Absolutely.
How do you recruit? Do you recruit people who are already in the industry doing the work, or are you reaching into colleges and training programs and pulling new people out?
Yeah, so we're always looking at our network first. That's our primary source. And then secondary source for us is builtin.com. So they're a nationwide kind of tech specific kind of job board. There's also in each kind of city, or a lot of the main cities, that have their own. So built in Colorado, built in Texas, built in New York, stuff like that. They're a great source for like tech specific kind of careers. We right now stay away from kind of the college recruiting, Kris, and it's mainly just because we tout ourselves as kind of a mid-market consultancy. So, we're at a price range that it's not Deloitte and Solomon and McKinsey, but we're also not staff augmentation, where it's kind of your cheapest onshore resource. So we want to be seen, and we do want to bring consulting expertise to our clients, right? So we do tend to have people that are kind of in the realm of 3 to 5 years of experience at a minimum. And then, a lot of our staff is kind of in that 5 to 10 year range of experience in their discipline.
Right.
So that's why so far we stay a little bit away from the college recruiting aspect. But that's a great avenue for a lot of our clients that are looking for great talent that they can mold.
No, that's good. That's good. What does success look like for you at Crafted, and how do you measure it?
Yeah, so definitely number one, which I've been proud of on our 6-year journey so far, is client satisfaction, right? Like we have to be good and great for our clients. As a small boutique consultancy, our next best thing is with the clients we have and with them getting to be great referrals and references for us, having great case studies, being able to show metrics that we moved for those clients, and just kind of the proof is in the pudding. So that's by far and away the thing that we keep a keen eye on. Then, my second one is absolutely like employee satisfaction. So for me, running and growing the business, I know we're a services-based business that's based on our team, right? So in order for us to do well for our clients, it has to be driven by my team members going out and just bringing passion and doing a great job day in and day out for our clients. So I want our team to always be like the most communicative in the room, the most collaborative. Transparency is a must, for us. We want our clients to always know what we're thinking, what we're doing, how we're driving the value forward. So those are the things I keep the closest eye on. Obviously there's certain, financial metrics and stuff like that. But I think my job is, if I can keep my employees happy and doing great work, they can keep our clients happy and driving great value. The rest of it will work itself out.
That's very good. If somebody is interested, either a startup, financial institution, partner is interested in reaching out to you to find out more about your services, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so 2 main options. I mean, there's always LinkedIn, but as far as email, you can always just reach out directly to me. We're a small team and ready to respond to you quickly. So it's adam@crafted.solutions or collaborate@crafted.solutions. Don't put a .com at the end of it. Everybody wants to put crafted.solutions.com. There's no .com. So yeah, just adam@crafted.solutions is great.
And your company website is crafted.solutions as well, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, listen, Adam, I really appreciate the discussion today. I think it was really insightful. Credit unions and fintechs are working so hard to create really rich experiences for credit union members, and I hope everybody who's interested reaches out to you for a conversation about how to do better at that.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me, Kris. This is a great conversation, and we enjoy being a partner with Constellation for sure.
Thank you so much.
This podcast is sponsored by Constellation. We're empowering community financial institutions with innovative digital solutions, powered by Fintech, driven by your roadmap. Join us as we navigate the future of digital banking together. For more information on how we can be your partner for digital transformation, Visit www.constellation.coop.
What a fantastic discussion with Adam in regards to what the good work that Crafted does from a product development and product management. And there's so much for our community institutions to learn about applying that methodology to their businesses. If you're interested in some additional content, please be sure to check out our audio channels as well as our LinkedIn channel for follow-up discussions. Please like or follow on your platform of choice. Thank you very much for watching today, and we will see you next time.